Absolute joke. Embarrassing. Embarrassing. And here's where the facts are. It's not just young Democrats who like lefty candidates. Both young and old Democrats rate figures like Zohran Mamdani and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez highly. The young sharply criticize their party, driving defection from establishment picks. And this is the most important thing you guys need to know. Bernie Sanders and AOC are popular with all Democrats, and they take their endorsement seriously. It's why Abdul won. Abdul would have lost without their help. I want you to all fucking understand that Abdul has no fucking chance in hell. If he was treated the same way as Francesca Hong, he would have eaten the same shit she did. Probably lost by more. The difference in their race was the national endorsements that Abdul got. Notice that all the local Michigan politicians all rallied behind Haley Stevens. Did you guys notice that? Just like that happened in Wisconsin. The only difference between their two races was in Wisconsin, Francesca Hong was left out to dry and Abdul El-Sayed wasn't. That's the only difference. Literally. Bernie said we can't support everyone in a political article. I mean, and by the way, I'm not saying you're not allowed. I'm not saying you're not allowed to do some sort of triaging. I'm not saying that that's beyond the pale. I'm not saying it's not okay to say this person is a low probability of winning. Okay? That's an okay position to hold. It's it's probably necessary. You want to concentrate your resources where they can make a difference. The thing about this is they could have made the difference. They could have made the difference. Abdul had won his primary. This was a tactical blunder, and it is indefensible. And, what is so frustrating to me is the reason why I haven't been going after centrist politicians much and been more focused on helping the people I like is because our lives are under threat. And you guys aren't taking it seriously. Late last night, this article dropped in The Guardian. U.S. conducted mass spying campaign against left-wing groups. As I've been telling you on this stream, if we do not seize power, they're going to attempt a fascist coup. And they may try it anyway. Newly disclosed records reveal the U.S. government extensively spied on prominent left-wing organizations and on protesters as part of a vast operation in groups opposing the immigration crackdown in Minnesota earlier this year. Internal investigative reports show the Department of Homeland Security sent undercover agents to community meetings in the Twin Cities and New York City, infiltrated signal chats, and obtained financial records of mainstream unions and left-leaning nonprofit groups. Nearly 30 law enforcement reports were released on Thursday as part of a criminal case. The Department of Justice has filed 15 against 15 Minneapolis protesters. The defendants are accused of a conspiracy to impede U.S. immigration officers during the Trump administration's surge in the region. The DHS investigative reports were disclosed by the government and submitted to the court by an attorney for one of the defendants. The records show that in January, DHS launched an inquiry called Operation Puppet Master to identify a network of conspirators organizing against U.S. immigration and customs enforcement. The operation came as community organizing against ICE was swelling in the region in response to the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. I'm showing you this because I need you to understand.
7 months after immigration agents killed 2 American citizens protesting the government's crackdown, we've learned that the federal government did, in fact, open an expansive investigation just days after those shootings. But it turns out it was not the investigation the public was calling for, demanding for, one that would probe the agents who fatally shot Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Instead, the Department of Homeland Security targeted individuals, and they targeted political organizations behind the protest. The New York Times has a new bombshell report.
FBI refused to investigate the killings, but instead investigates the people upset about the killings. Yes, that's exactly right. The DHS report from February said the agency was looking into the people who were providing material support to violent opportunists and agitators. Reports suggest agents launched elaborate spying efforts targeting activists, protesters, and mainstream progressive organizations opposing the Trump administration's immigration policies. I was shocked at the scope and apparent lack of investigative discipline involved, not totally surprised. DHS spokespeople did not respond to inquiries, and the DOJ declined to comment. The records indicate that the investigations followed the directive of Trump's executive order last year that designated Antifa a domestic terrorist organization responsible for riots against ICE. The investigators led to the criminal case filed in June 10 against 15 protesters, which focused on Direct Action Minnesota, a loose coalition of organizers that the government says was part of a conspiracy opposing ICE's surge in the region. In other words, the cops murdered American citizens in broad daylight, and the response was target the people that were protesting the violation of constitutional rights. The documents show the government alleged major groups were connected to the criminal conspiracy, including National Labor Union's AFL-CIO and Service Employees International Union. The local unions, Minneapolis Federation of Educators, and the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, and several large left-leaning groups, including DSA, and showing up for racial justice. Listen, I don't want to be a not surprised guy here, and obviously good that this is coming into the light, but we knew this was happening, didn't we?
Dr. Temple Grandin, one of the world's chief experts on humane animal handling, has always felt a special connection with animals. At a young age, she was diagnosed with a form of autism that allows her to visualize the world through pictures and symbols, the same way most animals do. This connection would go on to inspire her life's work. While earning her doctoral degree in animal science, Grandin performed an extensive audit of beef processing plants in the United States. What she discovered gave way to big ideas. Grandin began drafting a new beef processing system that would revolutionize animal husbandry. Emphasizing more ethical treatment, she proposed new methods for receiving, housing, transferring, and processing cattle, concepts she recommended to Cargill for its beef processing plant in Fort Morgan, Colorado.
Cattle are offloaded as calmly as possible to minimize excitement and prevent slips and falls. Cattle are usually rested in the pens for several hours before they go up to the slaughter line. This allows them to settle down.
And to transfer the cattle, Grandin suggested that less is more.
One of the biggest mistakes that people make when they handle livestock is taking up too large a group. You've got to walk more times back and forth, but it's really important.
The curved chute, or serpentine design, is one of Grandin's most innovative contributions. Its tall walls and winding design protect cattle from outside distractions that can cause panic, while soothing lights guide them forward.
Cattle have a tendency to go from a darker place into a lighter place. And this is one of the reasons why in many plants a light has been installed so that they will head towards the light.
With reduced stress, the process also gave way to higher quality products and increased incomes for farmers and suppliers.
When cattle become stressed and agitated shortly before slaughter, you get adrenaline released and you can get tough meat. Also, rough handling of animals can cause bruising. And if you have bruised meat, it cannot be used for food.
After implementing Grandin's system at its Colorado facility in 1991, Cargill eventually brought it to more processing plants across the globe, helping set a new ethical standard across the industry.
Keeping animals calm makes them easier to handle, it's more humane, it's safer for the plant employees, and it's just the right thing to do.
Well, thank you for your message. I wouldn't want to get agitated during the very clearly fascist wind up to our literal deaths. Everybody, none of you are surprised, so you're very calm right now. Remain calm. Let us return. Everyone's so smart, they're not surprised, right? You read the history books about how the communists and the socialists and the trade unionists were all arrested and went to concentration camps where they were mass killed. You're not surprised that they're doing it again. Congratulations. Now, don't get agitated. Go toward the light. Stay calm. Hopefully, Temple Grandin can help them design the camps, the death camps, so that so that you don't get agitated and have adrenaline release, or God forbid, stampede, or, and this is a crazy idea, resist. Got to keep them the meat tender. The records have added fuel to the concerns of civil rights groups who have argued that the federal government was criminalizing lawful protest activity under the guise of targeting left-wing terrorism. Well, the guy was in a pickle suit. He was Pickle Rick. We gotta kill that guy, right? He was Pickle Rick. The documents show that DHS investigators obtained financial records of unions and nonprofits as part of an inquiry into domestic terrorist financing. I'm sorry, chat. I was gonna have a crash out, so I had to show you the Temple Grandin info because that was my only way of not going fucking 0 to 100. I had to show you that video to not go from 0 to 100 because I feel like the chatter was intentionally trolling me, I guess for fun, because they said, I don't want to be a not surprised guy, but, and it's like, one of the organizing principles of our stream is to not be that guy, is to not be a not surprised person. And why is that? What is a not surprised person? A not surprised person is somebody who, whenever you are talking about some really aggravating and outraging story that is in violation of our principles, norms, beliefs, that even a regular person would hear and get pissed off about, a not surprised person will come and go, oh, you're surprised about that? You're just learning about that now? It's been going on a long time. What took you so long? And the not surprised person makes you feel like an asshole for speaking out. They make you feel like an asshole for being exercised and outraged. And they basically drain all of your energy. Because if something is not surprising, then it's normal. Then it's part of the status quo. Why get fired up? Why do anything about it? Okay? So I have a rule. Don't be a not surprised guy. If something's fucked up, even if it's been fucked up for a long time, even if it's fucked up because you've known about it for a long time, if somebody new is learning about it and they're outraged, feed that fire. Agitate, validate. That's what we do here. We don't do not surprised guy. I mean, it's one of the most fundamental rules of my stream is we don't do that. Because all of us learned something, all of us learned about shit at different times in our life. And when somebody is learning or somebody is becoming aware of something, if they're becoming woke, so to speak, you feed that fire. You don't use it as an opportunity to posture how you knew about it already and how it's not that, and how smart you are or whatever the fuck. So I never do that. I've known about this shit for decades. What do you think the stream would be? Would it just be me saying, oh, you're surprised the entire fucking time? Oh, you're just learning about that? If I was doing that every fucking day? Oh, asshole, that's fucking garbage. Don't do that. Stop it. I'm talking about a story that broke this morning about the feds investigating the AFL-CIO and DSA to argue they're funding left-wing terrorism, and you're telling me you're not surprised? Shut up. Jesus. I'm not trying to bully you. You're a great chatter and an awesome community member. But you said not to be a not surprised guy. You know this is annoying. Come on. Why am I not surprised that Mike is not a not surprised guy? Because my entire stream is keeping the outrage alive. Every day I wake up, I'm outraged about the unfairness and injustice in the world, even if I've known about it for a long time. I never let that fire die. My hate of injustice is pure. I feed it. I never relax it, expect it, and accept it. If it's fucked up, it remains fucked up. And I'm going to keep yelling about it until I die. Okay, anyway. One investigative record showed DHS used administrative subpoenas to obtain wire transfers from various financial institutions to and from SEIU and one of the largest unions in the U.S. Investigators also requested the Federal Bank of New York provide financial data from the Communication Workers of America, an international union, the records showed. This is the prelude to a fascist repression of the left, because these are not weak or outside the mainstream radical organizations. They are the backbone of trade unionism in America. These are unions that have contracts with fucking Verizon and shit, okay? And they represent tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of workers who are the backbone of American communication industry. And SEIU is service industry, including nurses, food workers, maintenance, and janitorial staff. DHS further obtained financial records related to Sunrise Movement, a national nonprofit focused on the climate crisis. Look at this picture. Absorb it. If we don't get our shit together, if we don't lock the fuck in, if we don't rip ICE apart and do a church committee too on the FBI, on the CIA, for all the illegal political work they're doing both here and abroad, our lives are in danger. And this is, again, this is not just far lefties like me. This is mainstream center-left organizations like Communication Workers of America or AFL-CIO or SEIU. The records also provided detailed documentation of spying operations conducted by undercover agents who posed as activists and surveilled community activities. One DHS report documented undercover agent activity on 31 January at a Sunrise Movement resistance skills training at the Minneapolis Public Library. We should get the entire list of that training. An agent described activists discussing recruitment and de-escalation at protests, with speakers suggested having a police liaison and safety marshal at events. Look at how liberal this shit is. It was clear that the Sunrise Movement organization focused on peaceful protests. I just got laid off from an NGO that works on democracy and immigration issues because funding is drying up due to donors being targeted by the feds. The threat is real and growing fast. Yeah, no fucking shit. Strength in numbers. Organizing communities is the only solution to the coming fascist wave at the federal level. This could be seen in the general strike in Minnesota. The undercover agent actively engaged participants, according to the report. At one point, the agent told someone in attendance that he works in construction and could build items that might assist other groups with more direct action protests. The agent told the individual that going to jail did not bother him and gave out his phone number. The records documented the operations of undercover agent who joined signal groups of activists involved in protests. The records also showed undercover agents surveilling a virtual meeting at Hunter College in New York focused on ICE brutality and responding to state violence, a meeting at a labor center in Minneapolis during which activists discussed a wide range of political issues, a meeting in a Minneapolis public park about protest tactics, and Direct Action Minnesota meeting at a church. I'm sure there's some people in the chat that were at some of these meetings. The documents indicate that agents made audio recordings of the events. One undercover agent attended a training event at a gymnasium in a church and participated in a boxing sparring practice, according to a DHS report. The report noted that the agent was surreptitiously recording audio of the event, but at one point the recorder erroneously fell to the floor and the agent had to return to the gym to retrieve the device. At one anti-ICE event at a church, agents documented the license plate information of the attenders. When two agents were approached by a man who asked they were ICE, the agent responded falsely that they were not. Farage, the defense attorney, filed the records as part of a motion urging the court to compel the government to release additional records. In his filing, Farage accused the government of presenting wild conspiracy allegations born from the fantasies of political retribution that animate the Trump administration. He also alleged that the DHS investigators were part of a mass spying campaign and said undercover agents participated in organizing and directing the groups they were surveilling, at times working to entice people into discussing or committing crimes. The records relate to activities that extend far beyond the allegations of the 15 defendants facing prosecution. The case alleges a vast conspiracy to organize against ICE, but across a 94-page indictment, there are no allegations of injuries to specific ICE officers caused by any defendants, and no charges of serious violence. Amelia Gonzalez Avalos is the executive director of Unidos, Minnesota. Okay, I can't. I need to stop. I need to stop trolling you guys. I need to stop. A Minneapolis, this is very serious. A Minneapolis social justice nonprofit group whose activities were mentioned in the files. I believe that this is a clear attempt to intimidate us, to punish and politically repress disagreement and difference. And that is not the America that we have built through hundreds of years. And it's definitely not the America we are organizing for. During trainings, organizers asked people not to record the sessions, Gonzalo said. But organizers would also say if there were any immigration agents or officers in the room, they were welcome to stay. Because the group had nothing to hide because their work was entirely grounded in the United States Constitution. How many copies of the Constitution would it take to stop a bullet, do you think?
So here
Mike German, a former FBI agent and civil liberties advocate, said it was striking that DHS was leading the investigation when typically the FBI would spearhead operations targeting political terrorist activity. Said it was also notable that DHS was using administrative subpoenas which don't require judicial authorization to obtain records. The government, German said, appeared to be relying on theories of guilt by association to justify surveillance instead of a narrow investigations focused on specific alleged criminal activity. German, who previously served as an undercover agent, further scoffed at the notion of undercover agents spying on what appeared to be accessible community events. You're talking about meetings that are open to the public, but they're recruiting among the public. Please come to this protest, he said. Hardly a challenge to infiltrate this kind of meeting. And that should be a clue. This isn't a criminal group. It's very rare for criminals to publicize discussion of their criminal activities. The investigations, he added, fit patterns in U.S. history of the government targeting left-wing activists and labor organizing. After 9/11, he said, they used those powers to spy on communities were greatly expanded. Nobody should be surprised that the government would use these authorities to target political opposition rather than target criminals, particularly so under this administration. Ending the fucking article with a not surprised guy. I feel like I'm being trolled I feel like I'm being trolled. Legitimately being trolled. I know like what I'm saying, like don't be a not surprised guy is not something you typically hear. Typically people like to posture as knowledgeable, and knowing stuff that you don't know and being like nonchalant about it is how I demonstrate to you that I'm wise. It's very much a performance of wisdom as opposed to actual wisdom, which is we should be really pissed about this. We should put all these guys in jail for violating our rights. And we should abolish DHS. And we should abolish ICE. And we should reconstitute all this. And we should investigate the FBI. We should investigate the CIA. We should investigate all law enforcement that was illegally suppressing constitutional protest activity. That's what we should be talking about. All right. Jon Stewart had crystal ball on. And
look, we all know.
Importantly, Luigi Mangione pled guilty. Luigi pleads guilty to stalking charge. I believe the strategy is he's pleading guilty to a federal stalking charge, as opposed, because that way he will not get the death penalty. And then at the state court level, they'll use his pleading of guilty to the stalking charge, get a conviction for first-degree murder. But as far as I understand, there is no death penalty in New York, so he'll get life in prison. So this is a strategy to get life in prison. If I were Luigi, you know, I gotta tell you, I would just go for it, man. You know what I mean? Is life in state prison?
Luigi Mangione is due in court about 4 hours from now, and sources tell CBS News he could enter a guilty plea in his federal murder case. Mangione is accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson back in 2024. He was arrested in Pennsylvania after a 5-day manhunt across multiple states. We told you yesterday about the discussions happening between the defense and prosecution in this case. Sources tell CBS News his guilty plea could come today, less than a month before his state trial was set to begin. Joe Tamburino is an attorney and legal analyst. He joins us now with more on this. Joe, good morning. First off, we want to be clear, nothing is final here until it's announced in court. But does it make sense for Mangione to plead guilty in his federal case when he's also facing state charges?
Good morning, Michael. Thank you for having me on. Yes, I think it would make sense for him because in any type of plea...
They're throwing out his state case due to double jeopardy. That's not what double jeopardy. That's not double jeopardy.
Negotiation and any type of plea deal, both sides get something. So I'm sure what Mr. Mangione is trying to do is see if he can get a sentence of anything rather than life in prison, because he's only 28 years old, and I'm sure he's going to try to work out a deal where he could still walk out of prison alive rather than spending his whole life there.
And Joe, in your opinion, would the double jeopardy argument apply in his state case if he enters a guilty plea today in the federal case?
No, I don't think it would, and that's for this reason. New York's double jeopardy law has a number of exceptions. And one of those exceptions is when you have two different types of charges from different sovereigns or different governments, the state and the federal. And those charges involve different elements, meaning components to a crime, and the charges are preventing different types of harm. So in this case, we have New York law, which has intentional murder, and that has different elements than in the federal charge of stalking. And New York's law is trying to prevent intentional murders, whereas the federal government is trying to prevent stalking or crossing state lines to stalk a victim and the victim dies. So we have two different types of charges with different elements, and those charges are designed to prevent different types
from different sovereigns. Do you understand?
Of harm. So I don't think double jeopardy would prevent New York State from continuing with their prosecution.
So if the state case does proceed, could a guilty plea in the federal case affect or delay the state trial?
Yes, it could affect it.
Yes, it could. And
because by pleading guilty, you could use the fact that he pled guilty, what he said in court, as evidence in the state trial prosecution.
That's only normal, because if you're resolving your federal case, that's the first one that's being resolved, and then you go into state court, many times it wouldn't make sense to have a trial in that state court. You would try to work out another deal. Why would you do that? Because you want to see if you could have the two cases in tandem, meaning that they're going to make sense with each other. Or you want to have the two cases run concurrently, which means you're not going to get additional time for one or time on top of whatever you're already serving in the first case. So, yes, I think it would make sense to try to resolve the state case after this federal plea.
All right, Joe Tamburino, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm giving you guys the legal. I'm pondering whether I want to explain to you guys legal doctrines or not, or if it's pearls before swine. Everybody has an opinion, and I'm trying not to get triggered. I'm in a bad mood this week. Obviously, you could probably figure out why. And I'm wondering if you know, everyone's really annoying to me. My ability to not be annoyed by everybody is low. I'm wondering, there's some legal doctrines that I'm pondering, chat, and I don't want to fire off. I don't want to fire off because I feel like I would need to do research. I feel like I would need to do legal research on it because I feel like, you know, my intuition is that it wouldn't be collateral estoppel that he pled guilty, but what he said in court could be brought in as evidence in the state trial prosecution. So in other words, he could still argue he was not guilty. It would just the pleading of guilty and what he said when he did the what's it called? When you say you're guilty of the crime. What's the word for it? Allocution. Thank you. He allocuted, and so I'm sure you could use the allocution in the state court if you're the prosecutor. Now I wonder, but it wouldn't be precluded from Mangione arguing that he's not guilty. You get what I'm saying? No, you probably don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. It's okay. Never mind.
Let's go back out to our Shimon Prokupez right outside the courthouse in New York City, where Luigi Mangione confirms he is prepared to plead guilty. Tell us more, Shimon.
Okay. So in courts, there's something known as hearsay, right? Hearsay is an out-of-court statement used to prove the matter asserted. And when you talk about out of court, you mean the proceeding that's taking place in front of you. Okay. So the allocution of Luigi Mangione would definitely follow under a million hearsay exceptions. So there's definitely no way that would be precluded for hearsay. However, I'm wondering if, you know, exactly how that would be applied at the state level case. I mean, I think that's a pretty strong evidence the guy did it, right? If he already admitted he did it, you know, it's kind of like he is confessing. I'm sorry for the not surprised guy comment. I spoke before I was able to fully form my comment. The not surprised statement wasn't meant to show any superiority over. Oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I was just doing a rant for the purpose of being entertaining and interesting. Don't feel so beat up about it, okay? Like, everybody says I'm not surprised. I'm trying to challenge the way that you approach the world by putting a stutter step. Whenever you hear that cliche, whenever people use the not surprised guy behavior in order to not feel a certain type of way. It's a way of creating a thought terminating cliche so you don't get pissed off all the time. And I'm telling you, you should be pissed off. I'm trying to challenge you and aggravate you and agitate you to not calm down. But I love all of you guys. If you're in this chat, 99% of you, I love you. You're fucking amazing. If I'm up here emoting, it's more of me emoting against the issues of the day of the world. It's very rare that it's actually at you guys. I am. How do I explain this without ruining it? But basically, I am up here talking to you guys out of my heart and emoting as hard as I can and just letting my flag fly because it is the most compelling way. At least I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I could always change tactics, but I think that it's the most compelling way to talk about these issues, the passion that I feel inside, as opposed to locking down and acting like a politician, which I can do. I mean, if you want me to, I can do that. Basically, they're going for a federal stalking charge and a state murder charge and arguing they're not the same. Correct. So you're telling me you've been hitting Fortnite emotes? It's not that I've been hitting Fortnite emotes. How to best explain it? I am not out of control. Anger, when you're angry, that's oftentimes when you're in the most control. You're not going to do anything, you know, like it's almost like it's like you're at the end of your leash, you know, but you still have a leash on. Okay, I haven't slipped the collar yet. Andor clip of using your anger. I love this show, dude. It's so good.
When do we start fighting back?
We have.
By walking away.
We fight to win. That means we lose. And lose and lose and lose. Until we're ready. All you know now is how much you hate. You bank that, you hide that. You keep it alive until you know what to do with it. And when I tell you to move, you move. Move!
Andor, man, it's such fucking bars, dude. Imagine Andor, everything's the same, except the setting is America. They never let you make that. All right, let's get back to Luigi pleading guilty.
So I'm going to just bring it to you right now from inside the courtroom. Mangione has begun speaking, and here we go. After years of enduring pain, from a broken back and witnessing similar experiences of others, he said he learned United Healthcare would be holding its annual investor conference in December 2024. He said the public location wasn't posted, but he researched to learn the location and who would be there. This is him now in court speaking to the judge in this allocution. This is the part for the judge to decide whether or not she is going to accept this plea. And he's now describing in his own words how he was stalking United CEO Healthcare Brian Thompson, saying that he learned of where he was going to be and that after years of enduring pain from a broken back and witnessing similar experiences of others, he researched where Brian Thompson would be at an investor conference in Manhattan in 2024. Brian Thompson's family seated Pamela in the front row. They are crying, is what our reporter Kara Scannell is telling us. What a moment for that family to come face to face. It breaks my heart because they have been so silent and they have not said anything throughout this whole ordeal. And to see their loved one to be murdered in this way.
You know, I think this is something that is really something that you should notice is the type of people whose deaths are noticed. Types of people whose deaths are marked, the types of people whose deaths are significant, whose families' suffering and grief should be acknowledged. And there are hundreds of thousands of families where no such honor awarded. And what has always boggled my mind, and it will until the day I die, hopefully many years in the future. Mike is clipping? Is it still clipping? Let me adjust. I might need to get a new mixer, chat. I think my mixer is fucking dying. How about now? Is that better? It's due to the fact that your mic is no, it's not. It's the Are you still using the old software? Oh yeah, I have to get the new software. That's true. No, guys, you need to understand trust me, I know more about what my setup is currently looking like than you guys do. Okay, just trust me on this. Just trust me on this, okay? Trust me on this. Did you see they're removing the federal tax stamp? Oh, I'm gonna buy so many. I'm gonna drive over to Nevada, and buy you just keep all your legally owned and purchased firearm accessories in Nevada where they're legal. And so anyway, what was I saying? The way that our society doesn't care about the middle class or lower middle class worker's mother who's denied medical treatment, and this is the hidden way that people like him are hurting people, is sometimes it's not even that they deny the care, it's that they delay the care, and delays equal deaths. This is something that a lot of people don't understand. The fact that, like, if I go to the hospital and a doctor's there, he's performing, he diagnoses me and he's giving me treatment, but then he stops and he has to put in some request to a fucking bureaucrat, and they have 24, 48 hours, and then they initially file a denial, and then they have to do an appeal. And every day that I'm sitting there in this bureaucratic limbo, my conditions are getting worse, and the odds the treatment will be effective decrease. Even if they eventually come to the legitimate answer, it may be too late. I might be maimed. I might have suffered tremendous pain. My condition may permanently worsen. Tissue may have died that cannot be recovered. Or even worse, I may have died. So it's not just the denial of care. It is the bureaucratic morass that all of us have to navigate in order for us to be considered human being enough to be given the treatment. And where is the national mourning for those deaths? Where is the care for those families? Where is the CNN reporter describing with teary eyes the suffering of the family? Doesn't happen for you. Doesn't happen for you. But the reason why people care about this story is because a lot of them, misguided as they may be, see it as cosmic justice. Now, I got to tell you, I don't consider this to be a good route. I want Medicare for all. I want businesses like United Healthcare to go away and their employees to go get a real job in healthcare where they're treating sicknesses, not pushing paper for profit. Okay? That's what I want. And I think that'll save a hell of a lot more lives than random acts of violence. But what I will say is that it is surprising to me how few Luigi Mangionis there are. And I don't know. And it seems to me that the future, unless we get some goddamn change, because it is the democratic will of the people that we have Medicare for all. If you ask Americans what they think if healthcare should be a human right, they say yes. It's a matter of getting that popular will enacted through our bureaucratic, sclerotic, veto-stuffed system of legislative failure we call Congress.
And now the man responsible for it, standing up in court for them will be excuses. And none of this is going to make sense. To hear him explain why he did what he did, and we have heard this from Luigi Mangione before during the investigation of this, where he was having issues with his back. But for this family to sit there and listen to this, and he's now, here we go, Pam, again, he says to the judge, I shot Mr. Thompson and he died.
Wow.
He concluded by saying, I knew what I was doing was illegal. Again, I shot Mr. Thompson and he died. I knew what I was doing was illegal. That family is sitting in that courtroom listening to this.
Wow.
Again, he admits now, in his own words, to stalking Brian Thompson. He says that in November of 2024, that he traveled, Luigi Mangione telling the judge, I traveled from outside of New York State to Manhattan. So he came from outside of New York. I emailed United Healthcare leadership. Wow. So this I don't think I've heard this. I don't remember ever hearing this. I then emailed United Healthcare leadership, Luigi Mangione saying that he emailed United Healthcare leadership posing as an investor at a firm managing over $15 billion in assets and requested information about the conference.
Wow.
Unlike my previous interactions with insurers, he received an immediate response within an hour. And that is how he learned where Brian Thompson would be on the morning.
Guys, sometimes when you hear information like this, our reaction could be a rueful smile, you know, where you look at it and you think, gosh, the investor information desk was really well stocked at United Healthcare. They had a lot of employees ready to answer the requests of shareholders and investors really quick. And if only the responses to people who are in desperate need of healthcare were as fast, or if the investor responses were as slow as those desperately needed paid members of United Healthcare, then this horrible crime may not have occurred. Horrible crime. Can you just imagine, guys, I think some of you are not receiving the emotional impact. So let me paint you the picture here of what Luigi Mangione did. Luigi Mangione, racked with horrifying back pain and being given the runaround over his broken back for years and years and years of bureaucrat, and constant suffering, trying everything so that he could live. Started to fixate on these healthcare executives who are making billions and billions of dollars. Sorry, health insurance executives making billions and billions of dollars after denying, opposing, and defending against the legitimate claims of the people who hold their policy. And Luigi Mangione, spurred on by that pain, decided to do something about it. Now, I have decided to do something about it, and that is campaign for Medicare for all. Right? That's what I do. I campaign for Medicare for all. Luigi Mangione, he did something that I'm not an anarchist. So anarchists call this propaganda of the deed. With propaganda of the deed, what the anarchists are saying is, if you do this kind of thing, it's going to inspire people to realize that the system is made up of fragile and can be overturned. I don't think it works, personally. The reason why I'm not an anarchist is we haven't seen any healthcare fucking policy changes. All we got was this one guy shot and they replaced him the next day. It did not change healthcare in a durable way. Only seizing state power could do that. If you care about giving everybody healthcare, we've got to take over the government. Luigi Mangione, I mean, the fact that he emailed the investors and got the answer so quickly because he posed as a rich capitalist. My goodness, that's a new detail we didn't know.
He would execute him. So this really even highlights more. Yeah, I have not heard that either, Pam. This is new information, and obviously this all came up during the NYPD and the FBI's investigation when they were probably going through his computer.
But like, CEOs get paid so much. Surely they have irreplaceable skills that can't be replaced so quickly. Oh, yeah. The probably the least skilled people in any company are the senior executives. The people that are the most replaceable, that have the most, that have the least important skills are the people at the top. They're not there because of skills or knowledge or intelligence. They're there because of social status and power and their willingness to do the tasks of capital, which are exploit and take and have unalloyed greed. Either they have sociopathy or they are willing to put down what any objection they might have and implement it anyway. Constructive sociopathy. It kind of like the group of people that are probably the most replaceable by AI are the senior executives. And I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened. You know, like imagine the amount of money they could save in compensation if they're not like giving billions of dollars to senior executives in both equity and non-equity compensation. They don't have to have so many private jets. You know what I mean? I'm kind of surprised. They control the company. Why would they fire them? Well, I'm just saying, I'm just saying. And I'm not really surprised. It's because capitalism is about a social class. So it doesn't act in the interests of capitalism in general. It acts in the interests of the social class. That's why China's system has been able to wring out so much more development so much faster than other market systems, is because their billionaires are subjugated to the national interest. The Communist Party of China has billionaires, has markets, has capitalism, but it's fully subordinated to the interests of the state. And they nationalize and keep state ownership over all natural monopolies. They have all land is owned by the state. They don't allow, financial capital or other monopolies to like dominate they force capitalists into a vicious competition with each other for the purpose of maximizing productivity. There's a Deng quote that I think a lot of people have not heard. And it's actually something that pisses people off the most because he talks about the productive forces. This is why so many anarchists are so against Dengism, because he said that in order to have communism, you need to have unbelievable wealth. That communism cannot function without unbelievable wealth. So, in other words, it's post-scarcity.
His phone and his email. But this is just so striking that he emailed. This is how long he had been planning this. And this
is a very controversial argument in socialism. This is probably one of the most controversial positions ever taken in socialist thought, which is to build socialism, we must first develop the productive forces. This is like the one, like if you want to get people mauling, talk about this. Revolution means carrying out class struggle, but it does not merely mean that. The development of the productive forces is also a kind of revolution, a very important one. It is the most fundamental revolution from the viewpoint of historical development. Over the past 30 years since the founding of the People's Republic, we have laid the basic socialist foundation in agricultural, industry, and other areas. But we have a major problem. That is, we have wasted some time and our productive forces have developed too slowly. All revolution is designed to remove obstacles to the development of the productive forces. Since socialism is superior to capitalism, socialist countries should be able to develop their economies more rapidly than capitalist countries, improving their people's living standards gradually and becoming more powerful. We have suffered some setbacks in this respect. The objective of achieving the four modernizations is actually put forth by Chairman Mao and announced by Premier Zhao in his report on government work. But how did the Gang of Four respond? They said that it was better to be poor under socialism than to be rich under capitalism. It seemed to them that socialism means pauperism. Marxists have always held that socialism is superior to capitalism and that socialist countries should be able to develop their productive forces more rapidly than capitalist countries. Lin Biao and the Gang of Four totally deviated from the cardinal principles of Marxist-Leninism and Mao Zedong thought. Being a large country, China should play a more important role in the world, but owing to its limited strength, it cannot play a greater role. In the final analysis, what we should do is try to promote China's development. It is not enough that we stay poor, and actually we are very poor. Such a status quo is far from being commensurate with the standing of a great nation such as ours. Therefore, starting last year, we shifted our focus onto economic development. We should unequivocally continue to do so. Developing the economy is a new endeavor for us, for which we must pay a price. We are exploring ways to develop the economy more rapidly. We have confidence we can do so. We must emancipate our minds, and we should do so even in answering the question as to what socialism is. If the economy remains stagnant and people's living standards remain at a very low level for a long period of time, we cannot say that we are building socialism. This is an extremely controversial argument that a lot of people mauled over. So just so you know, I'm giving you guys the dangest argument, okay? We should research earnestly how to carry out socialist development. At this time, we are reviewing the experience gained in the past 3 decades since the founding of the People's Republic. To sum it up, is as follows. First, we should not adopt leftist policies from divorcing ourselves from reality or skipping over necessary stages. Otherwise, the task of building socialism will not be accomplished. We have suffered losses from leftist policies. Second, whatever we do, when they say leftist policies, what they mean is like command economy, not having any markets, not letting anybody what is a dangus? A dangus is someone that believes that to develop socialism, you must develop the productive forces of the economy. That socialism and communism are stages of post-scarcity that develop following in state. Like, so humanity has to go through stages. Sometimes people call it stagism, right? Where you're like, first we had hunter-gatherer, then we had agriculture, then we have ancient empires, and then we had feudalism, and then we had capitalism, and then we had socialism. So if you're a feudalist society, to get to socialism, you have to go through the capitalist stage. And what a lot of the communist countries in the world, they won socialist revolutions while in a feudal stage of development. And the daggest argument is that you have to develop the productive forces of the economy to a high enough level that you can provide universal wealth and hyperabundance for everybody. That's when socialism will be achieved, is when everybody's wealth will be, everyone's rich, basically. That's when you have socialism. Capitalism is a period where only some people are rich. Socialism is the period where everybody is rich. That's the Dengus argument. Second, whatever we do, we must contribute to developing the productive forces. In our effort to do this, we should stress economic results. Unless we develop the productive forces, we cannot gradually increase people's incomes. We have suffered a great deal in this respect, especially during the 10 years of the Cultural Revolution. We should research why so many African countries which have been developing socialism become poorer and poorer. We should not consider it to be glorious merely to call our nation socialist, nor should we be content with this. This is why a lot of socialists are like, they get mad because he's just like, Deng would basically be like, show me the results. Socialism is a good term, but if we fail to have a correct understanding of it and adopt correct policies for establishing it, we will not be able to demonstrate its essence. We believe the socialist road is the correct one. While carrying out reforms, we should still adhere to the 4 cardinal principles, one of which is to keep to the socialist road. In building socialism, each country should adopt policies commensurate with its particular conditions. As for a big country such as ours, we must give due consideration to the specific conditions in each area. For instance, we encountered the problem that some areas were self-sufficient in grain had become grain deficient. Of course, the growth of the urban population is one of the reasons for this change, but it is a minor one. The main reason lies in the fact that these areas proceeded without giving due consideration to the actual state of economic development, and they did not act in accordance with the laws governing economic development. Policies formulated on this basis cannot arouse the people's initiative. In the past 1 or 2 years, we have emphasized that measures should be suited to local conditions, and in rural areas, we have improved the system of responsibility by fixing the output quotas is based on individual households and production teams. Consequently, conspicuous results have been achieved and output has doubled. So there you go. Dengism. Anyway, back to Luigi.
Tells you his frame of mind that he emailed United Healthcare leadership posing as a $15 billion manager of an investment fund to learn where he was.
I just want to go to Ariva on some of this information coming out of the courtroom today from Luigi Mangione. For the first time, I'm learning, and Shimon said he hadn't heard it as well, that Luigi Mangione posed as an investor with a firm and just reached out via email to the insurance company and then received a response within an hour. And that is what helped lead him to Brian Thompson, where he said, I shot him and he died. I knew what I did was illegal. Wow, Ariva.
Yeah, that's a shocking detail, Pam. I remember early on when this case came to light, when all of the publicity, we had all the reports, and I just remember the people who were supporting Mangione, who were glorifying what he did, who were making him out to be some kind of martyr. And it was really sickening at that time. And now to hear the deception involved, how he found out about that meeting which was otherwise not a public meeting, that individuals who had not been invited wouldn't have even had access to that CEO. And he used, he posed as this manager of this large fund to get that information and then to stalk Brian Thompson, to show up at that meeting, to shoot him in broad daylight on a street in Manhattan, just makes the nature of this crime even more heinous. And I just hope all those people who somehow thought that this was an act of courage now understand what a heinous act of cowardness this was. Again, my heart goes out to the family that had to hear this, but hopefully this begins some kind of closure for them. That sentencing hearing that will take place in December will give them an opportunity to present impact statements and to talk about how horrific the loss of Mr. Thompson has been for this family. Again, we talk about the state court. At this point, Pamela, you can only imagine that this is about where he's going to serve time, because it is clear that he is going to get a life sentence, whether it's from this federal court or if he is convicted in state court. And the lawyers are jockeying now to determine, does that life sentence happen in a federal prison or in a state prison? But certain that he is going to spend the rest of his life in prison, as he should, for the admission that he just made in that courtroom today.
All right, Michael Smerconish is actually standing by and wants to get in this conversation. Michael, what are your thoughts?
I want to follow up something Ariva said about the perverse nature, the way in which some have received this horrific murder. On 54th Street, where this transpired, the hotel where Brian Thompson spent his last night is a hotel where I would often stay when working for SiriusXM and CNN. And I remember being on that block in the immediate aftermath, 2 or 3 days later. What was surreal is the fact that there were no candles. There were no flowers. There was no memorial for Brian Thompson. And what I remember is that on a telephone pole that was adjacent to the murder scene, I saw something that depicted Luigi Mangione as a saint. You might remember that there were wanted posters that were then put up in that neighborhood for other corporate leaders. And all of the glamour and panache that has surrounded this man, I just find twisted and tragic, and I can only hope that the way in which now he has just articulated exactly what he did is going to change minds, maybe not, but of those people that have glamorized this killer. I can say killer now without any fear of contradiction because of what he has said. And one other observation I'd make is what a sin that we all couldn't watch. There ought to be cameras in courtrooms all across the United States, including federal courtrooms and including the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah, I am with you on that.
Look at that Romeo. They've got a Romeo working as a cop. This is outrageous. I guess he's a bomb sniffer. Free him. Free him. He's probably a bomb sniffer.
Michael Smerconish. Our Kara Scannell just came outside of that courtroom. Kara, you were there for every second of what went down. Tell us about it.
Well, Pamela, Luigi Mangione was led into the courtroom. He was wearing a beige prison outfit, escorted by 2 U.S. Marshals, where he sat down between his attorneys. The judge went through the process asking him if he understood his rights, if he had taken any medication, if he was under any medical care. All of his answers were crisp and clear, someone who was definitely in control and aware of what was going on today. And then when she started to ask him the specifics of his guilty plea to explain what he had done that was wrong. Mangione chose to stay seated, and he started to read from a piece of paper. The judge actually stopped him and asked him to slow down because he was going too quickly through it. But a few things that stood out to me from what he said is he started it by saying, after years of enduring severe pain for a broken back, navigating obstacles in the healthcare system. So underscoring again what his motive here in this case is. And he walked through it saying another thing, he's underscoring what he had previously written about in those writings, the greed of the healthcare industry. He said he had emailed United Healthcare's leadership trying to find out about the specific location of the investor conference where he was targeting Brian Thompson. He said he claimed to have $50 billion in assets. And he said, like, unlike his other previous interactions with the healthcare industry, he got a response immediately within an hour. Then he went on to explain that he had made a gun using a 3D printer, that he had obtained a silencer, and then he said he traveled to New York with the intent to shoot Brian Thompson. He said, I knew what I was doing was illegal. He did not say it was wrong.
Defense attorneys are now...
Oh my God, chat. Ethan's attorneys just got rebuked by the clerk of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for being incompetent. We'll get to it next.
With the microphones, let's listen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is...
God, how much do you think they've made off Ethan Klein, the West Bank settler lawyer who loses every case? How many cases does a lawyer have to lose before Ethan fires them? Can I be a not surprised guy about Ethan's attorneys? Oh, of course. The only thing you're not allowed to be a not surprised guy is about injustice in the world. This is awesome. A loser, an evil loser losing is awesome. You could be not surprised about that. That's fine.
My name is Karen Friedman Agnifilo, and I represent Luigi Mangione. Today is a solemn and significant day. With today's guilty plea, Mr. Mangione has accepted full responsibility for the death of Brian Thompson, arising from the events of December 4th, 2024, outside of the United Healthcare Investor Conference here in Midtown Manhattan. It was a single tragic event, yet he's being prosecuted twice for the same conduct. As Luigi explained in court today, he endured years of severe, debilitating pain following a broken back while struggling to navigate our healthcare and health insurance systems. Like the thousands of people who have reached out since this tragedy to share their own experiences, he believed that the system had failed him and destroyed his life. Despite this being a single isolated event, Mr. Mangione has been unfairly treated since the outset in every way and has successfully fought off terrorism charges and the death penalty, while also fighting at the same time two simultaneous prosecutions in two jurisdictions who are trying to punish him twice for the exact conduct. He's been treated differently from every other defendant charged with this offense in New York. However, thankfully, New York law does not allow this. New York law does not permit a person to be prosecuted and punished twice for the exact same crime under a statute that governs successive prosecutions. It's also known as the double jeopardy law. Today's guilty plea triggers this statute, and we just filed our motion in state court explaining why the state charges must be dismissed under New York's double jeopardy protections. We will not be taking any other questions. Thank you so much for coming.
So Luigi Mangione has pled guilty to a relatively minor stalking charge in federal court. His attorneys are pursuing the idea that that represents full jeopardy for the murder case, meaning that a state level law in New York State prevents the re-prosecution at the state level. Democratic org anti-extremism project targets left. Oh, it looks like Third Way is allied with the Trump administration. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. So Luigi Mangione has pled guilty, and here's the thing. Just yesterday, Yale's School of Public Health published a new report. Universal health coverage could save $1 trillion and 114,000 lives every year. A single payer. Wait.
Universal health coverage.
Oh, God. I wish we could have I wish people would just read their articles. A single payer universal healthcare system could cover every American, save more than 100,000 lives a year, it still cost $1 trillion less than the system it would replace, according to a new preprint study led by researchers at the Yale School of Public Health. For the study, which has not yet been peer-reviewed, the researchers modeled what would happen if the United States adopted a national public health insurance program like the one proposed in Medicare for All Act. Using 2024 spending, insurance coverage, and mortality data, they estimate that universal coverage would reduce annual health expenditures by $1.04 trillion, or nearly 20%, even after accounting for the additional care that uninsured and underinsured people would receive. Inflation costs have been rising faster than inflation, and a staggering share of that spending is consumed by administrative middlemen, soaring drug prices, and emergency care for conditions that should have been treated earlier and for less. This is according to Alison Galavani, PhD, which is the Burnett and Stender Families Professor of Epidemiology, Microbial Diseases, and Director, the Center for Infectious Disease Modeling and Analysis. So the same day that Luigi Mangione pleads guilty, Yale School of Public Health is putting out a report saying Medicare for All would save $1 trillion and 114,000 lives every year. And what is CNN reporting on? CNN is reporting upon the deaths of a man who made that $1 trillion of stolen wealth. I'm sorry. People die every day. It is unconscionable that 114,000 lives are lost and those lives are invisible. And this guy who was killed years ago is supposed to be an important fucking story. Healthcare costs have risen faster than inflation, and a staggering share of that spending is consumed by administrative middlemen, soaring drug prices, and emergency care for conditions that should have been treated earlier and for less. Medicare for All strips out these sources of waste while providing everyone with health care, saving over $1 trillion and 114,000 lives every year. The model identified 5 sources of savings: lower pharmaceutical prices, Medicare level payments to providers, reduced administrative overhead, less fraudulent billing, fewer avoidable emergency department visits and hospitalizations. Even under more conservative assumptions about drug prices and fraud reduction, the researchers projected that the savings would reach at least $663 billion a year. Both figures account for an estimated $304 billion in additional spending to meet unmet medical needs, reimburse care that now goes unpaid, and provide universal dental coverage. Honestly, guys, I gotta tell you, people call me a radical. People call me controversial. I feel like I'm a goddamn saint with the knowledge that we have here, with the facts that we are facing. I feel like I am not radical enough with, understanding of this. Like, I'm telling you guys to vote and have this long-term plan for January of 2029, which means another 300,000 people are going to die. Another $3 trillion is going to be wasted. In my best case scenario, 342,000 people will unnecessarily die and $3 trillion more will be stolen. And people are calling me radical. I think I'm absolutely too moderate, to be goddamn honest with you. A universal healthcare policy would save tens of thousands of lives. They estimate the annual coverage for all could convert 62,863 deaths annually, and nearly half would be among people who already hold insurance. These are underinsured, the more than 45 million working age adults whose deductibles and cost sharing put care beyond financial reach anyway. Reversing coverage rollbacks and other health policies enacted since 2025 would avert another 51,311 deaths per year, researchers project, bringing the annual total to 114,174. The study builds on findings that Galavani, co-author Megan Fitzpatrick, and other colleagues published in The Lancet in 2020, which projected that universal health care would save $450 billion and more than 68,000 lives annually. The larger estimates in the new study reflect ballooning health expenditures, a widening gap between commercial and Medicaid payment rates, and new estimates on recent policy changes and the underinsured. The authors cautioned that direct estimates of excess mortality among underinsured adults are unavailable, requiring them to model that risk. Their spending analysis also does not account for transition costs, administrative job losses, or how providers might respond to Medicare payment rates. A system that covers everyone, costs $1 trillion less, and averts more than 100,000 deaths annually, requires no due discovery to implement, only enactment. Even with these limitations, the researchers argue the United States already spends enough to provide universal coverage. The problem, they conclude, is how that money is allocated. A system that covers everyone, costs $1 trillion less, and averts more than 100,000 deaths annually, requires no due discovery to implement, only enact it. Only enact. I mean, what do you even say? What do you even say? Like, I don't even know, you know, what do we say to each other at this point? All right, chat. Aggravating day, but also a day that has been clarifying.
Let's talk a little bit about wokeness. Wokeness it has come for Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings, the #1 blue-haired wokester on the CNN panels, has a lot to say about Abdul El Sayed. Yeah, septum pierced. He has a lot to say about Abdul El Sayed and African Americans. Let's talk. Let's take a listen here.
On top of these candidates, in their own words, their surrogates are just as bad, even worse, actually. We continue today our exploration of the radical...
Yeah, the Ethan Klein lawyer thing. Oh, yeah, good point. Hold on. Well, we'll go back to that. Hold on, you're right. Ethan Klein's lawyer takes rebuke by Ninth Circuit court clerk over incompetence. So, if you guys don't know, Ethan Klein lost a verdict on the pleadings against Denims about whether or not she violated his copyright. She was determined by law and on the face of the pleadings to have a airtight case of fair use, and he was defeated. So Ethan Klein attempted to appeal. Now, the problem was that Ethan Klein had 2 cases against Denims on copyright infringement. One on the content nuke and one on the countdown to the content nuke. Well, in order to do an appeal to the Ninth Circuit, he decided to drop his other case about the copyright infringement on the countdown. But he did so without prejudice. Well, what the fuck does that mean? Well, when a case is dismissed, it can be dismissed with prejudice or without prejudice. I don't know why this is not zooming in. I'm trying to zoom in, and I can't zoom in. Why can't? Okay, there we go. We're zooming in. Okay. When you drop something without prejudice, it means that you have the right to refile the case within the statute of limitations. If something is dismissed with prejudice, it's the same thing as losing, and it's permanent. It cannot be refiled, okay? So Ethan Klein, he wanted to waste Denim's money by appealing a case that he has absolutely no chance of winning, because it's the most obvious case of fair use that's ever existed in the history of the country. And he's going to fucking lose. But before he loses, he's trying to run Denim's wealth to zero, have her spend all her money on lawyers so that she can't afford to have an appellate, jurist, an appellate attorney take her case. Probably he'll aim for the Supreme Court if he can. Okay. So a Supreme Court case that could cost millions. All right. So he's lost horribly at the trial level. Didn't even make it to trial. It was such a bad case. Lost on the pleadings. So now he's trying to take it to the Ninth Circuit. Except, and as I said, he dropped the other copyright case on the countdown without prejudice. But here's the problem. That's not allowed because there is a prior case, Galaza v. Wolf, which says that they can't hear the case yet because when he dropped that other case, he did so without the court. And because he did so without the court, the appellate court has no jurisdiction to appeal because there was no decision made at the trial level. So it's not appropriate for an appellate court to weigh in if a decision has not been made by the court itself. He's the one who withdrew. So there's nothing to appeal. Therefore, the Ninth Circuit lacks jurisdiction because there's no decision. You can't appeal something if there's no decision to appeal. And so the clerk of the court, Molly C. Dwyer, issued a directive to his attorneys saying, in addition to all the other issues the parties wish to raise in their briefs, the parties must address whether this court has jurisdiction under this appeal. See Gonzalo v. Wolf. And her summary of the case, which is what's in parentheses, is Molly's summary. When a party has suffered an adverse partial judgment, subsequently dismisses any remaining claims without prejudice, and does so without the approval and meaningful participation of the district court, this court lacks jurisdiction under 28 United States Code Section 1291. The existing briefing schedule remains in effect. So in other words, Molly is saying, you guys might lose this appeal on a jurisdictional failure, because by dropping the countdown case, you did it of your own initiative. Therefore, there's nothing to appeal. You lose. This court lacks jurisdiction. Embarrassing. Truly embarrassing. He's a fucking moron. Ethan Klein is getting robbed by probably one of the most incompetent lawyers of all time. He does nothing but lose. The only cases he's ever won is because somebody didn't have the money to carry him through. Every time he actually has to fight, head off against another lawyer, he gets fucking destroyed. So I don't know how much he's robbed from Teddy Fresh. All I know is they've downsized. They've really started downsizing over on Teddy Fresh. It's almost like a giant tick is connected to Ethan Klein's jugular and is sucking him dry. And like, part of me, I can't help but laugh. I can't help but laugh. What? My lawyer can't do fucking shit. And I know that Ethan Klein, he listens to me say that, like, the best part about being me is I could just narrate this reality and they're not mentally equipped. They're not mentally equipped to actually respond to anything I'm saying. So all they could do is try to insult me, use edited photos or shit from out of context 10 years ago, and signal to their audience by saying shit like this.
Mike from PA, enemy of the show.
Wild.
Oh man, I need to use my sound. I have such banger soundboards, chat. Like, come on, listen to this.
I endorse non-Democrat Bernard Sanders for U.S. president.
I'm down. He fucked us.
Oh fuck, those are some legendary bits. Holy fuck, I need to hit those more. The best part is people suffer a severe sunk cost fallacy when it comes to capital they've thrown willingly to a lawyer at $1,000 an hour. So he probably refuses to recognize how he's being exsanguinated by his counsel. Here's the thing that you're totally right. But the other thing is, like, I think that the Casey Tron case actually fucked him even more, because Casey Tron made a difficult but honestly brave decision to be like, you know what? I can't really afford to carry this case. I'm just going to take this. I'm going to take this settlement, and I'm sure he got some small amount of money and the apology, and he's now using that to justify all these other cases. It's like a heroin dealer giving you the first hit for free. You know what I mean? So with the Casey Tron case, which was just as meritless as all the rest, he got that little hit, and now it's leading him down the primrose path of just utter devastation and failure. Casey Tron could eat a Big Mac in one bite. So could I. Do you have like a child's jaw? Is your jawline like tiny? Big Macs are they're like this big around. They're tiny. What the fuck are you saying? You can't? Yes, it is like you probably shouldn't. It's probably too much to put in your mouth, but it's not like it's high difficulty, especially for an adult man, Like, come on. And you should want somebody, like, unhinging your jaw is a useful skill. So show respect on her name. Okay, that's all I wanted to say about Ethan Klein. Ethan Klein is a fucking loser. No one's really talking about him anymore. How is he doing? As he started to recover, as the H3 podcast started to recover, it kind of feels like they've surrendered. Oh no. Oh no. Oh wow. Oh god. That's probably the biggest month-to-month drop they've had since last year's big month-to-month drop. God damn, dude. Last July, they had 9 million. This July, they had 7 million views. Negative 10,000 subscribers in July. God damn. When's the last time they had a positive month in subscribers? October of 2023. It's always crazy to me how many people, like, take on the anti-Hasan, anti-Mike fight. It's like, I almost feel like the Grim Reaper You know the Grim Reaper meme where there's all these doors with like faces on them and then just the bloody trail as the Grim Reaper goes from door to door to door? I would love to make a version of that for the Mike from PA battles, because honestly, it would be like 30 long. It would be like 30 long. You probably wouldn't know any of the names. You would probably like, Mike, you even consider that to be a slay? And it's like, I don't. But they like came at me with all they've got, acted really arrogant, and then imploded. And I just kept doing what I was doing. You know what I mean? I don't know why. 4K daily? No, that's not quite how it works. Whenever you see a number next to a streamer, like say like right now I have 4,000 live concurrents. That number is not the number of people that watch. That is the number of people that the website has detected as currently active. It's not the number of people that watch. The number of people that watch is usually somewhere around like between 5 and 10 times that, depending on the person. Type 1 if you are not a bot. Yes, type 1 if you are not a bot. Mike, are you in a better mood than an hour ago? Yeah, of course. I was in a good mood then too. Listen, we got Oliver on Tuesday. It's a very important race. I love Oliver, okay? You know, Vio and I have put our backs behind Oliver. And he got some shit from hanging out with me and Hasan. So I want him to do as well as possible. It's unfortunate that the national progressive movement has not coalesced behind these insurgent candidates. One of the things that kind of sucks is like Zoran won and then he went quiet. And like that bums me out. Could you imagine if Zoran Mamdani did a rally for fucking Fran? Check these Teddy Fresh Google trends. What's this peak? Oh, that was a pretty good peak. What month was this? Oh, November of 2023? What happened? What happened after that month? What are the related searches for Teddy Fresh? Teddy Fresh hoodie, Teddy Fresh t-shirt, hoodie, Teddy Fresh. I wonder if how much he spends in ads. Gotta be a lot, right? Zoran is doing the scenes and keeping his power dry. Okay, guys, listen. I love Zoran as much as the next guy, but let's not let him get away with this, you know? He's a mayor. Okay. He's an internet sensation, motherfucker. He's an internet sensation.
Nah, because Mamdani is who y'all thought Obama was. And no offense to Obama. Obama was great for his time period. But the shit that Mamdani's doing is like generational right now. Like I'm seeing all these videos in New York City going up right now of like problems that New Yorkers are facing. And like within 48 hours, they're making another TikTok on how Mamdani's already solved their problems. And man, I live in Florida. Why the hell am I getting so much like fucking progress videos of what's going on in fucking New York about Mamdani? I'm so far away from that political sphere, and every day is like a new fucking breaking story about the good shit that Mamdani's doing. I've never even heard of this shit. In fact, I've never even heard of a mayor that's gotten this much like publicity. Like, bro, like this man's everywhere. They're posting this man on Complex. They're posting this man on fucking rap pages of like, yeah, Mamdani just fixed the entire budget of New York City in like less than 2 months. Like, what is going on in New York City right now? What type of motion is this? And I remember those first few years with Obama, everybody kept saying the same thing anytime you mentioned him. They were always like, oh yeah, that guy's in a gig. Like he's always doing too much. Like he's doing too much positive too quickly. And it's like that's actually Mamdani. Like no offense to Obama, but like Mamdani's actually doing like everything right now. Like I know he's putting together like an Avengers level team in that administration. Like bro's getting fucking the 2013 heat up there, bro. Like I know he got people monitoring TikTok and being like, yo, tell me their problems and I'm just gonna go and solve it with my own TikToks. Like it's fucking insane. Nah, because Mamdani is who y'all thought Obama.
And I feel like, do you hear the messaging here? Okay, do you hear the messaging here? Do you hear who it's coming from? Is this a politically aware socialist organizer? He's speaking about Mamdani in a way that a normie would, right? Which is, Mamdani is who we thought Obama was. This is the type of person that we're trying to win over. And when we talk about issues, we try to talk about them in persuasive ways. Theo has made me another waffle, egg, and hash brown. This is why I'm fat. Thank you, Vio. Honestly, can I just say this? And this may be cringe, but keep in mind I'm in my 40s. Whenever I go anywhere and I have Vio with me, it's so much aura. It's so much aura for me. Vio is just like, you can't measure up to that. You can't measure up to that. It's so much aura for me. It's like people go, that guy must be rich. I feel like a king with my queen when I walk into a room. That guy must be rich. You mean Vio has so much aura? Correct. It's like I'm like the moon and she's the sun. I'm just it's, you know, it's great. Farage should have studied Zoran. Every politician should. All right, I'm gonna say something My tone is going to be men impressing other men. Pfft, I don't give a shit about what men think. Everyone is impressed. Everybody's like, that's aura. Anyway, literally, when we were in Wisconsin, people were like, I thought I saw, somebody just said in the chat yesterday, somebody said they saw it. They didn't realize it was VO because it was like seeing an alt baddie in real life and they couldn't handle it. And it's like, the Themperors has arrived. Okay, what was I saying? Oh, okay, the person was talking about Zoran. What I need you to understand about Zoran, I just got married last week and relate so hard. Married socialist in. I know exactly who that chatter is because I remember somebody gasping, "Oh my God, she's gorgeous" near me, and it made my night. Okay, we like the humility. Okay, we like the humility. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, Zoran. You guys are seeing Zoran Mamdani in the light of the modern of the moment that we're in now. You don't remember the path of Mamdani. I'm surprised. But you have this recency bias. You don't know. You don't remember Mamdani. You don't remember the path to get to where we are. Okay? Motherfuckers were like, he's gonna be Satan from hell. He's gonna kill Jewish people. He's gonna introduce Sharia law. He's an anti-Semite. He's incompetent. He's gonna ruin the city. He's gonna destroy the economy. New York City will fall. Do you guys not remember? When he hung out with Hasan, he was at 3% of the polls. I remember my first tweet about him. I said, I like him. He's really great. I hope he does well. I think it was in January. I think I was one of the earliest supporters. I do have a lot of Mamdani posts. I should probably sort by time. This guy won 43.5% of the New York City Democratic primary with what? 30% of eligible voters turning out? Hey, go right ahead, Democrats. Run on the Mamdani agenda in places like North Carolina and the Omaha House seat. And I said, he won a 12-point landslide. What are you talking about, Jim? Zoran toppled a political dynasty, a two-term governor, the son of a governor, that had super PACs that outspent Mamdani 5-1. We are coming for you. The thing that you need to understand is that Zoran Mamdani had state matching funds for his campaign donations. He had ranked choice voting, and he barely won. I need you guys to understand that as talented as Zoran Mamdani seems now, he barely won. Just like Abdul barely won. Because it's easy in hindsight, now that we know what it's like with him as a mayor and that it's great and it's improving, there's a few things I disagree with him on. I'd like to see him get some major police reforms and accomplished. I think that would be a huge W for him. But the reason why that's difficult is because everyone on the city council is basically Chuck Schumer. So he doesn't have enough backup. So when you say like, oh, everybody should study Mamdani, they are studying Mamdani, but they're experiencing the same resistance that Mamdani is experiencing. And the only reason why this is changing is now people can make money from Mamdani. So a lot of opportunists are now talking about Mamdani. And honestly, I'm okay with it because it boosts our faction's credibility with regular normal people. Here's my tweet from January 2025. Zoran is just a really likable guy. There's a rule in the Mike from PA lore. The less likes a tweet has, the more it's going to be a transformational political observation. And the reason why, like the smarter something is, the less attention it gets. The dumber the post is, the more attention it gets. Statewide office is still hard to win for DSA. They would have done it with Fran. They would have done it with Fran. All right, let us move on. Let us move on to the next thing, which is breaking points on Jon Stewart. The worst part about breaking points is the fact that they have that stupid fucking fascist chud who's part of it, who brings absolutely no audience and doesn't serve any purpose at all. Sagar. And they bring him around, and it's like, what the fuck are we wasting our time? He brings nothing of value to the table. So we have this like very important left-wing show, and it's wasting half of its energy on a chud who brings nothing to the table.
In an attention economy, what sells the most is probably outrage, anger, and those things. So how do you in your model avoid being captured by the rage of the townspeople? You know, how do you avoid pitchforks and torches?
Sometimes they're necessary. That's the thing. Sometimes pitchforks and torches are necessary. Sometimes Dracula's in the castle, motherfucker. Sometimes there really is a demon in the crypt. The question of whether torches and pitchforks are correct is on the basis of who's in the castle. Is it Princess Peach or is it Dracula? Right now, every castle has its own fucking vampire lord sucking the blood out of every child that's born.
Well, that's why we're really blessed, honestly. It's a right-left show. So, you know, at any given time, a decent portion of the audience is mad.
And what are the other of us?
It works well.
It works really well.
We're going to be hated no matter what by some portion, yeah.
Can you show me the evidence that there's any right-wingers watching the show? Like, I love these guys. I love these guys. I really do. I do like these guys. I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but it really just feels like crossfire for Zoomers. Which, do we really need to hear more right-wingers talking in our media environment? Do we need more Trump-supporting right-wingers? Like, do they not have enough fucking, you know what I mean? Like, they're allied with the richest people in the country. Like, what are we doing here? Like, why do we have this? Like, it must be good for normies. I don't get it, because I'm just so like, it's why I've criticized the show for a long time on this basis, and I've never seen any evidence of this, like, of the idea that right-wingers watch this show.
Perfect.
What about property taxes? I consider that swing state slopulism. Ultimately, my goal, I consider it to be not a great policy, but it's one that can be kind of, it's like, it's not that big a deal because, you know, if we're implementing new revenue streams have a tendency to persist. So if I like cut one tax by some percentage, but I implement a new tax, in the future, that's going to result in a permanent increase in revenue.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Weekly Show podcast. My name is Jon Stewart, the final podcast of the year. We will be gone for the rest of August, and I think
summer
coming back in early September. So been a delightful year. Obviously, tonight, I think, is the Wisconsin primary. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll probably discuss it during the episode.
Oh, no.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, the final Weekly Show podcast before summer break. And we have the co-hosts of Breaking Points, Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty are joining us today to discuss all that is happening in the world.
What do you think about no property taxes on your primary home after age 65? I think different types of housing have different types of, are for different types of families. If you are 45 and you've got 2 kids and a dog, it might be more justifiable for you to have a 4-bedroom home, right? If you're an empty nest boomer who's 66, fucking move. Sell your goddamn house or give it to your kid and have them start their family in that house. And you can move into the mother-in-law suite. You know, like, have a multi-generational home. But the idea that boomers should keep a house, like a 5-bedroom house while they're 90, that's fucking insane. Like, as life transitions, you need different types of housing units. An 18-year-old person should not be given a 4-bedroom house either. They should get themselves a nice 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment. So I personally don't like the idea of giving special tax breaks on housing to keep elderly people in non-suitable housing. That's spread out because they need more services. So if you're a boomer and you're living in some fucking suburb, in a low density suburb, and then we need Meals on Wheels and nursing care and all this other stuff, it's so much more expensive to drive around as opposed to if you're closer into the city, say you're in an assisted living facility, whether that's townhomes or small apartments or whatever, where you can get, maybe you could even have like a doctor or nurse on site. Maybe you could have a community focused on, building relationships with fellow elders. I think it's a good idea to kind of encourage people to live in suitable conditions. Oh my God. Forget downsizing. Boomers are going bigger in retirement with 5,000 square foot homes. What it means for your wallet. Guys will tell me run for office, Mike, and then they'll show me links where their logic for showing it to me is boomer side. It's like, don't show me links like this where you're trying to argue that boomers should be targeted. Like, don't do that. I love boomers. My parents are boomers. What the hell are you trying to do over here? Mike, I got a job. Congratulations. For decades, retirement came with a simple financial assumption. Empty nesters would eventually sell the family home and move somewhere smaller. But baby boomers are now doing the opposite. Angela and Victor Martino of Denair, California, spent decades raising their 2 daughters in a ranch home measuring less than 2,000 square feet. Rather than downsizing, after becoming empty nesters, they bought the 5,000 square foot house next door instead. Will downsize when they plant you 6 feet into the ground. I don't like cemeteries. I think they're a waste of land. I don't think we should do cemeteries. I think they're creepy. I have no problem with like those like little mausoleum things, you know what I mean? Where you have like a little slab of marble. You know, what do they call it? Mausoleums, right? Not like an individual, like yeah, it's like a crypt. Or oh, you know what's fucking based? What they used to do in the Middle Ages, catacombs. We should all just be big piles of bones in some fucking church basement. That's metal as fuck. I love a good catacomb. Communal catacombs are awesome. An ossuary, yeah. Give me that fucking ossuaries. Ossuaries for all. Following a year-long renovation, the new home now includes a large kitchen for entertaining, a playroom built to withstand visits from their 7 grandchildren, and accessibility upgrades designed to help them remain there as they age. Baby boomers now account for 42% of all home buyers, the largest share of any generation. Many have benefited from decades of rising home values and stock market gains, giving them the greater purchasing power than younger buyers who face higher borrowing costs and affordability challenges. Financial advisor April Tardif has watched the trend unfold firsthand. She told the Journal that with all 8 of the clients who retired this year who bought larger homes, while only 1 client downsized over the past 5 years. The historic retirement plan of sell your home and buy a smaller one just isn't happening, Tardif said. Some are adding first floor primary suites, wider doorways, and accessible bathrooms so they can comfortably age in place. Others are creating guest suites or accessory dwelling units to make more room for adult children, grandchildren, or their own aging parents.
First of all, welcome, Crystal. Welcome, Sagar.
Thank you so much for having us, John.
Thanks for having us.
I want to start by saying I don't feel comfortable seeing you two in separate spaces.
We had a debate about that, actually, but it just was a little bit technically easier this way. So I'm sorry that we made you uncomfortable.
And same for you to see you at home in a t-shirt. It's throwing me off from my childhood.
Oh, dear God. If only you knew, Sagar, how painful it was for me to put on the suit for my 20 minutes a day and all that. That's actually why I left the show in 2015. I just decided, hey, man.
I couldn't take that anymore.
I'm done with the button down. This is over. But we're delighted that you're both here. And
I would have loved to see Jon Stewart going, Medicare for all? That's unrealistic. That would have been fucking funny. Can you imagine? Isn't it odd how he managed to slip away right as the progressive left was starting to gain strength? All that credibility, and it just went up in smoke.
I want to ask you, because you're such an interesting dynamic. As you guys have worked together, do you find that your political opinions are starting to converge? Because I think the point of it is sort of at a guy a little bit on the right. You know, Sagar, you'd worked at Daily Caller, you'd done some things, Crystal, more on the left. But as I listen to you guys, I find there is a great deal, not just of respect, but convergence. And I can't think of another show where sort of the idea is to get those contrasting viewpoints that has had that. Is that how you're experiencing it?
I would say it depends very much on the moment of the news cycle. Yeah. So if you had been watching us regularly leading up.
This is why I don't like the idea of the show. And like, I love Crystal, but my objection of the entire idea is when you're talking to conservatives, they are not intelligent. And I don't mean that to be a mean thing to say. I'm sorry, but it is true. They all have idiosyncratic beliefs. And all this show does is normalize this. The idea that you could vote Republican every election, but you're not responsible for any of the fucking positions of the Republican Party, that you could just pick and choose inside your mind what you agree with, and that's what your politics are, as opposed to what you do with your power. So Sagar's saying, oh, it sucks how we're spending all this money on Israel. Anyway, I'm voting for Donald Trump for the 3rd time. I don't give a fuck if you disagree with Israel in your mind, but then you spend all your time defending the Republican Party. I don't care if you think abortion should be legal in some cases if you spend your time supporting the Republican Party. I don't give a fuck if you like public schools if you spend your time voting for the Republican Party. I don't care if you're pro-union and you spend your time voting for the Republican Party. I don't give a fuck if you believe in animal conservation or the environment or green energy or any of this other shit. You don't believe in it. You're a right-winger. And America has this problem of concealing to Republicans what they actually believe, which is the number one purpose of the conservative media complex, by the way. Which brings me to a thing that came yesterday, which is now these chuds are all going like, oh yeah, healthcare, that's not unreasonable. I don't know if you guys saw the two biggest chud comedians, leaders of the rise of Trump culturally, Shane Gillis and Joe Rogan. This is what they had to say today.
This communism's the gayest shit ever.
It's the worst shit.
Somebody needs to look into how gay communism is.
But isn't it crazy that it's making a comeback?
Yeah.
It always does. It's a cycle. There's a cycle.
The problem is if we cannot call it communism if we get free healthcare.
Right.
That would be a good move.
That would help a lot.
We're calling everybody communist that wants free
socialist,
healthcare.
communist, and you're like,
free healthcare is cool.
Yeah.
We should have that.
It's normal.
Yeah. That's not communism.
We should have
Communism is
healthcare
no
and
private
education.
property.
Yeah.
You should treat the entire country like it's a community. If you have a community, would you want the sickest person to fucking die who could be very valuable if you could like take care of them? And do you have the resources to take care of them?
Of course you should. We're a rich country.
Exactly.
Do it with libraries. It's no big deal.
This is the problem with
We don't
capitalism.
feel like a community.
This is the reason why people turn on all these billionaires. They turn on them because why do you have so much when people have so little? But it's because it's the game. It's the game that they're playing. And you're playing the game too. You're just not playing it at that level.
This communism's the gayest shit ever.
It's the worst shit.
Somebody needs to look into how gay.
Somebody needs to look at your hard drive, bro. I guarantee there's a lot. I guarantee this fucking guy's browser is certainly not into, you know what I'm talking about, Shane. You know what's on the drop-down menu at the top left of your Pornhub, you fucking, like, this guy is such a hack, man. It's boring, bro. But you get the point. And this is why you need the communists and the socialists, because now suddenly they're ready to hand out concessions now, aren't they? They're starting to get a little scared, aren't they? They're starting to get in line, aren't they? Starting to get a little bit nervous. But this is not what you believe. You guys are fucking J.D. Vance and Donald Trump glazers, you fucking loser. Shane, your entire comedy was saying slurs and Donald Trump yellow face or orange face. You're fucking boring, bro. Not to derail, but did you see the appeal against denims may already be cooked? Yes, I talked about it earlier. But I just don't agree with the idea of like, yeah, they're agreeing with us. I don't give a fuck what you think you agree with. Are you supporting Francesca Hong? No. Are you supporting Abdul El Sayed? No. Are you supporting Zohran Mamdani? Nah. Are you actually supporting DSA? Nah. So what the fuck do you mean? Oh, I agree with it. You don't agree with shit. What, in the moment? So you can pander to your audience because you know how popular the idea is? You're going to pretend to support it while you do everything you can in your power to block it?
To Trump's victory or after Trump's victory when we were talking about immigration and mass deportation and CCOT, or even today we had a big debate about like woke 1.0, you might get a different impression. But the concept of the show, from the beginning, even predating the current iteration of Breaking Points was, okay, if we got the best faith interpretation of the populist right in conversation with the populist left, what would that look like? And my theory is that there would be different overlap than you might find on sort of the traditional like Crossfire, to name a throwback.
Oh, I just got something just back of the neck, hairs.
The typical Crossfire sort of cable news dynamic. And so I think that's what you're picking up on. And certainly on the Iran war, on changing the relationship with Israel, on, economic issues, there is a lot of overlap there.
I think the thing you said, Crystal, that resonates the most with me is best faith, good faith. I think, and Sagar, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I think that's what you're picking up on.
It might not be a convergence of opinion. It's that it's a good faith discussion.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we both really built our show around is like a rejection of cable news and just not only the format, but the very way in which they want to increase division. And we have plenty of division, which we showcase very openly and honestly, as you just pointed out, Crystal, about our woke 1.0 debate. But in it, there was a good faith. I mean, Crystal heard me out and I heard her out and we gave our counterpoints. And There was no like yelling or screaming at each other. I also, whenever you're talking about convergence, I think that one of the things that really comes with respect is understanding. And so we've been doing this, not just this show, but our previous iteration of the show for almost like 7 or 8 years now.
What was the first one?
Rising.
It was Rising.
That's it, Rising.
Over at the Hill. And one of the things that comes with that is you come to understand very deeply where other people are coming from. And it's really useful because it helps not only in your interactions politically, but like even in your everyday life. Like when you hear somebody say something, you can understand where previously would have been like, what an idiot. You're like, okay, I see how you got to that conclusion because of the information you took in, or your worldview is just fundamentally really different than my worldview. And there's a level of acceptance with that. One of the best compliments that we both get, if we're in public or something, is like, you really helped my relationship with my dad. You just helped me understand like where my dad was coming from. When
I'm so not a liberal, bro. Like there's a lot of times like when I'm watching content and I'm just like the chasm between like left liberalism and like where I'm at just becomes so yawning and so wide. And I'm just like, I don't get it. You helped me get along with my racist chud dad as he continues to like target trans people. That's some white people shit, man.
Whenever he would rant about X, Y, and Z, like I understood why, and then or vice versa, like help my relationship with my kid, and like my kid's really into DSA, and like I don't understand, you know, what that is. But when I hear Crystal talk about it, it's like, okay, like I kind of start to make sense to me. And so, in that way, it's really edifying, and part of the reason why I love doing the show.
As you've come together, and now it's been, as you said, I think 7 years, or does it help you also identify the bad faith actors in our political and media hellscape? Has there been a way for you to discern, these people are performative, these people are bad faith? And do you avoid that now, avoid those folks, or do you expose? What's your...
Both.
It's a mix. Yeah. I mean, definitely. That is certainly the case. And look, I have become less tolerant of a lot of pundits on the right. There are very few who are actually on the right that I would work with at this point, because I just think there's so much.
He's got the one good one.
Much lies and propaganda there that to deal with that on a daily basis would not be productive. If you're doing a debate and you're having engagement, you're trying to expose, that's one thing. But to work together with someone every day, as you know, is an entirely different relationship. So, for example, in the wake of your John Fetterman interview, I don't think that is someone I could work with every day because there's
John Fetterman. I'm not sure John Fetterman is working with John Fetterman every day.
Just bad faith arguments, a lack of an ability to really even grapple with the questions that you're asking, et cetera.
Yeah.
But what has made it work with Saagar is we've had some very heated debates, very hot, and over issues that we both care a lot about and I think are very consequential. What makes it work over the long term is that we're both capable of saying, you know what, I got it wrong there. You were right. You had a point.
I think what makes it work is that he hasn't been able to implement his positions yet. But if the Republicans are able to do what they're trying to do by rigging these elections, and they could use state violence to shut you up permanently, he gets to inherit breaking points and make it victory point or whatever the fuck.
And I think over the long term, that's part of what has built the trust that enables it.
I totally agree. And it's like, Chris, vice versa, I think, especially at the height of a lot of pretty crazy moments, 2020 and others, there are not a lot of people, I think, who I could have stomached. But yeah, I mean, as Crystal said, it can get hot and that's fine. I actually think it's healthy. It's normal. It's reflective of literally the nature of the country. We're literally living through one of the most tumultuous times, I think, in modern American history. It's probably akin to the 1960s. In a lot of different ways, or actually maybe the 70s is a better comparison.
Here's what's sad. I think I'm the only one who's lived through both of those.
That's true. I've only read about it, John.
If you have any questions, I am happy. I'm happy to tell you about it.
Right. But I mean, John, since you were there, you know that was a moment of very actually limited public debate. And in my opinion, one of the reasons why things went really wrong was because of the convergence of the mass media era. Like for me, this is honestly surreal to be able to talk to you because you were so instrumental for me as a kid who is growing up in Bush country, hearing these lies about the Iraq war. There is only one place that I could go to expose like this level of hysteria and nonsense, which I just hear propagated all day long on all three cable networks. And that was at a time of total ubiquity in mass media, part of the reason that we got into the war that we did. And it went as long as we did. I think that the Iran war is a disaster, but it is a hopeful story in that the poll numbers went south immediately. A huge amount of the American public is getting their information from sources or different from sources like us, many others who are out there who are able to expose the absolute holes in all of the propaganda that the Pentagon or the White House is able to put out. And so
Republicans pretty much unanimously support the war in Iran. I mean, this is like Sauger is the leftist equivalent of never Trump Republicans. Like, unironically, he is. You know what I mean? Like, he unironically is it just doesn't exist. Like, the idea that there's a bunch of Republicans out there that are populist, angry about the war in Iran, it doesn't exist. It's not a significant, it's a phenomenon in some of our spaces, but it's not a politically relevant group. Just like anti-Trump Republicans or libertarians were not a relevant group in 2016. And I think it actually is really bad for us to pretend that they are. I think it makes us believe wrong things. That, for example, the right wing is actually where we should be trying to recruit as left-wingers. Left-wingers, we should be trying to recruit from liberals. Liberals largely agree with us. They have a similar moral framework. They have an egalitarian outlook. They believe in racial equality. They just don't really understand the structures. They don't have a materialist analysis. Whereas people on the right, they don't agree with us. They have the opposite moral intuitions. They like hierarchy. They like domination. They're okay with inequality. They're okay with non-egalitarian, sexist, racist, homophobic beliefs. They're not. They like war. They like theft. They like domination. They like might makes right. These people are not real. They're not fucking real. They're media creations.
Look, it's a disaster that we're in this, but it's actually a hopeful story that the public turned on it almost immediately. And so that we didn't have that edifice to prop it up that we did at that time.
Well, let me ask you a question, because it brings up sort of the incentives of those systems that created that. Because I think you make a nice point about the 60s and 70s being tumultuous in that same way. I think the Iran war has gone south in some ways because this administration doesn't respect us enough.
And by the way, if you're a right winger who has changed to the left, that's good. I'm just saying that holding space for this as if it's some sort of like key to winning power is nonsense.
Lie to us.
Yeah.
But there's more money to be made online by pandering to the right. Yeah, there's also this there's this kind of self-effacing tendency among people on the left to kind of humble themselves and like make themselves smaller and orient themselves toward these fucking losers. It's like, ugh. I don't know how to describe it. I don't get it. I see it so much and I'm just like, why the fuck are you orienting towards these enemies? Weird, man.
They kind of don't give a shit what we think. And in the 60s and 70s, the lies were generally, media has found a way, the incentives of it, to get weaponized. Bad faith actors weaponize it, right? The ubiquity of cable news was at first, and TV in general, in the 60s and 70s, politicians weren't quite sure what to do with TV. Mm-hmm. And you remember the debate between Kennedy and Nixon. And Kennedy went out there and he understood that television is a visual medium. And Nixon was like, I don't need makeup. I look great.
He's sweaty and clammy.
Right.
Yeah.
And he got his ass kicked on the TV side. But if you listen to it on the radio, people thought Nixon won. Do you think it's, in some respects, the media has just, politics has figured out how to weaponize media? Is that fair to say? Like you just talked about all these bad faith actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
They exist as part of a political ecosystem, as a way of, Roger Ailes very famously said, I want to create something so that what happened to Nixon could never happen to another Republican president. Sometimes we separate media and politics, but isn't it true that in a lot of ways, there's a symbiosis? A lot of it's been co-opted by politics. And I'm curious what you think of that. And we can talk a little bit about breaking down those ecosystems.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, absolutely. And the amount of propaganda, the amount of lies, you go on Twitter, now X, and there's all these accounts that are just AI slop accounts feeding all kinds of nonsense. It makes it very difficult actually to sort out what's happening in the war, not to mention there's a total censorship lockdown on the U.S. as part of what is happening in the region. On the flip side of it, though, there's also a hopeful story there because in its best incarnation, they haven't been able to cover up the horrors and genocide. People watched that in 4K themselves, and they took their own moral opinion of what was happening there, and it went directly against what the bipartisan elite consensus had been for years and years. I think you're right that it's insulting that they didn't even bother to lie to us this time before the war. I think it also reflects the fact that Donald Trump doesn't feel that he needs to go through the mechanisms of democracy. We just have to swallow whatever insanity he's going to do. But I also think the fact that you have so many dissenting voices in new media that were critical from the beginning and able to expose the very thin level of propaganda that had been fed to us has also been a positive point. Now, I get concerned because there are also legacy media has its advantages. There was a real tradition and a firewall between opinion and the, and the journalist part and the advertising.
No, that would be wrong. I think one of the difficulties of political commentary analysis, streaming in general, I start to have these like meta commentaries so that I try to like spread out the criticism I'm about to make, by extending it out longer so it can't be clipped so easily. And one of the reasons why you like to extend things out longer to not make it clipped is because a lot of what makes people successful in this industry is vibes and collaborations, and it's not really the value or strength of their analysis. And so, whatever you see someone who's like on your side, who's saying kind of damagingly incorrect information, whether it's Kamala Harris is going to win, Gaza's not that important of an issue, mainstream media used to not be biased by the advertisers, or there was a firewall, whatever the kind of like shockingly bad take, unbelievably wrong, not even close to true. You don't want to be seen as excessively harsh because you're kind of undermining that person's credibility. And so, you're damaging them, right? And by damaging them, I'm damaging myself because I'm burning a bridge. And I am, I'm also, I'm not being constructive toward the common goals that we share. This is all the long way of saying that, whether you're reading Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent or the far better Michael Parenti's Inventing Reality, all of the problems with the mainstream media that we have today were even more virulent in the past. They just didn't have an alternative media competitor. So the Overton window of acceptable political discourse was heavily constrained. Somebody like Bernie Sanders was not part of the conversation. The reason why it feels the way that it feels to Crystal is, first of all, she is radicalized to the left. She used to be far more to the right than she is now. That's number one. How do I know? I've known her for years. I met her when she did a speech after losing her congressional race. She did a speech at a thing called Keystone Progress, which was a statewide convention of left-wing activists groups in Pennsylvania that would happen every year. So what's happened is a new media apparatus, like the structure, material structure of media has changed, right? There has been all sorts of things that have changed. So it's not that things are worse now necessarily with mainstream media. It's that the contradictions are now visible due to an expansion of the Overton window, which the mainstream media has tried to keep clenched, and their grip is being broken. And it is the strain and the pain of that grip being broken on the minds of the American people that is causing the mainstream media to be so more heavy-handed, ham-handed, because they don't have the strength to keep such tight informational control, right? And, so I think Crystal knows this and would probably agree with me when I say it. So it brings me back to the beginning of why it took so long and did such a circuitous explanation as to prevent it being easily clipped. And that is to say, nostalgia is a powerful emotion. The mythical past and how we remember it is altered by our current memories and experiences and emotional state. And every time you access a memory, you change that memory. This is a very disconcerting thing to realize. A lot of the things that you remember have actually changed over time due to you recalling them, the way that things have changed. You know, you hit your head, all sorts of stuff. So you may remember a thing that never actually existed. It may become more of a vibe, or the pleasant feelings of being younger with less responsibility and anxiety. And so when somebody says the mainstream media used to be less biased, that's funny. And to close off the argument I'm making, basically CNN was invented and gained massive popularity doing nothing but showing Pentagon releases of precision bombs exploding on Iraqi targets. And now ubiquitous clip that we're all used to seeing. Weapons camera tape edited down to right before the explosion in the first Iraq war. That's when CNN really truly blew up. And, you know, we could go down the list, we could go down the line, but it's to say that she's wrong.
And those walls fall down in new media. But overall, I think when you look at those two stories in particular, you can see that it has helped to create a better atmosphere for small d democratic understanding of what these wars and what this genocide actually are.
I think it's a real...
Oh, that's absolutely true. If it was the old media, then people would be in support of it.
Important point. And it's a double-edged sword, as Crystal said. I compare it to the invention of the printing press. I mean, that's how the internet... I mean, seriously, that's
You're
what the
going
internet...
old school.
Yeah, because, I mean, what did that actually do? Is it decentralized media? We literally had something called a 100 years war, a Protestant, Reformation, chaos, millions of people died. But of course, nobody would say, well, yeah, the invention of the printing press was bad. It was just, it unleashed a new medium of debate. Much of it was propaganda, actually pornography, one of the original inventions of the printing press of mass distribution, just like the internet. But what it demonstrated, I think, on a long enough timeline was a more informed public. And that's the thing. We're working things out, as Crystal said. And this is where I think all of us can be upfront and honest. Like, we are in a difficult position because we are people who do the news, but Crystal and I are also business owners. We co-own our company, but we set, rules at the very beginning. We do not read ads, period, because we believe that if we did so, it could potentially compromise things in the future. Now, we know that we have sacrificed literally like multiple zeros of income. However, what we've decided instead was to build a more anti-fragile business. For example, like we have a premium subscription program, we have YouTube revenue, we have like dynamic ads, which are not ads that we read, which we have no negotiation or interest in, but it took a level of intentionality. However, though, there's no reason that we had to do that. If we wanted to read Manscaped ads, we could.
And most people are not doing that and are not going to do that.
No.
Yeah.
And most people are not doing that and are much richer than us as a result. But we believe in the long run, it'll work out.
You're starting to make me sweat.
Yeah.
And it's why I look to Quince. Hey, folks, I know you're trying to figure out ways to skip through these little ad reads here. I get that. I know what you're doing. I know you're looking into that Spotify thing. Listen, I'm not blind, you bastards. And to be honest with you, I'm not crazy about reading them in the first place.
Okay. Chat, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I'm sorry if I was in kind of a sour mood. Just got a great text from Oliver. I really appreciate the guy. I want you guys to lock the fuck in. It's an important race we have coming up on Tuesday. And the thing to remember is job's not done, okay? And there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. So I appreciate all of you, and I really do like I do like Crystal and all these people, and I know I sometimes feel harsh. I guess the thing that I feel is that if you're gonna be on the left right now, you gotta be locked in, and I don't feel like the left is locked in right now. It doesn't feel that way to me, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to like use my influence to make people lock the fuck in just a little bit more. So it is Friday, and every Friday we have a movie night. And this week we are I'm putting the Discord link in the chat right now. It's the new, I think it's, what is it called? I Love Boosters. We're watching that at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We get together and watch a movie. This week is I Love Boosters. It's time to get loose!
Get your camera out. Let's go live. You know the egregious theft that's been happening at my stores. The boosters take my clothes because they're low-class urban bitches.
Chrissy Smith knows we exist.
I call it triple F. Fashion forward philanthropy. I know how to spell philanthropy. Branding, though.
For that, you're a raw ass, make it happen, hustler.
Give it to me. It's mine anyway.
In fashion, humanity is our canvas. But the Velvet Gang is reducing our margins. But I can bob and weave.
Christy Smith stole my design.
What? If she stole your design, we gotta get it back for that.
I have a plan. Together, we empty out every single Metro designer in the Bay Area.
We gotta take what's ours. We should coordinate.
Well, what are we waiting for?
They're taking everything.
It's not even that yellow in here anymore.
You okay?
It's time to get loose! It's time to get loose! It's time to get loose!
You boosters just take.
Like you. We follow this plan to precision.
Their wig game is crazy.
Damn.
I'm gonna need you to trust me.
We have to make her cry.
3, 2, 1.
This looks so cool. I just paused it on a random frame, and it's like the visuals, the costumes. Just like, god damn, dude. This is what movies are about.
Oh, come on. Let's take all of it. Grab them wigs.
It's time to get loose!
All right, so we're going to be watching that tonight. We're going to be hanging out. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, chat. We'll be back on Monday. No, wait. We'll be hanging out together tonight. Maybe I'll stream this weekend. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. I'm a little bit, I need some rest and recuperation, you know? Rest and recuperation. But come hang out. We're going to watch that movie tonight. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for all the support. We were just short of our weekly goal of 6,420. We ended up at 6,403. So I appreciate all of you. You guys are the best. Great movie. OCDSA just had an outing to watch it. Oh, that's really cool. Be generic. Love you, brother. Care for yourself. Keep your head up. The last 2 weeks shows you the ecstasy of victory and the despair of defeat. And the one lesson is we have to keep moving. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be disappointments. But we can fucking do this. And I believe in you. And thank you so much for all the support. I'll see you guys later. Say hi to VO for me. Peace out.